Welcome to Bark and Jack, I'm Adrian, and today we are off to spend a bit of time with JLC's master watchmaker and an £800,000 Gyrotourbillon minute repeater perpetual calendar. It's in here. This video is going to be full of excuses, and the first one is going to be about this chap. This is one of Jaeger LeCoultre's master watchmakers, and unfortunately I cannot remember this chap's name. It's really unfortunate because he was a really nice guy, and he was incredibly patient with my lack of knowledge around the inner workings of a watch. And I would have captured conversations that we had, but he was actually talking through an interpreter, and that really doesn't come across very well in video, so I just left that stuff out. Before we get to this watch, let me quickly tell you about our Nato straps. You can get premium at Nato straps at barkandjack.shop, and we have just launched a new one. It is a grey seatbelt nylon with black PVD hardware. So jump over to barkandjack.shop and check out this and other Nato straps that we have. Anyway, let's get into this beast of a watch. This is the Master Grand Tradition Gyrotourbillon Westminster Perpétuel. Let's look at some of the stats, because this thing is, it's just insane, man. It's absolutely, it's got a white gold case. It's 43mm in diameter. It's 14mm thick, which sounds quite thick, but when you hear about what's inside, it's really not that thick at all. It's got 5-bar water resistance, which is not amazing, but considering everything else that's going on inside the thing, that's pretty damn impressive. So the functions that this thing has, it has a leap year calendar with central jumping hand. It's got a perpetual calendar, date, hour, minute, day, month, minute repeater, second, and the Gyrotourbillon. This event was actually a private viewing of this new Gyrotourbillon, which was launched in January this year, 2019, and with the master watchmaker. So it was pretty much just about 4 or 5 of us in a room. And I was kindly invited along as a +1 with a viewer of this channel who's repeatedly supported the channel. So thanks so much to you. You know who you are, and he likes to stay anonymous, but he's a very generous chap. We saw this thing in the Corinthia Hotel in London, and JLC had hired out this whole suite, huge suite, and the corridor into the suite was just flanked by about 6 or 8 security guards. And it kind of makes sense, because this watch is by far the most impressive timekeeping thing that I've ever got my hands on. This thing was absolutely mind-blowing, and I'm really sorry that I haven't, there's going to be a second apology within this thing, I'm really sorry that I haven't managed to capture good video of this thing. I'd organised with JLC for me to spend some time to kind of do a follow-up shooting of this watch in a couple of days after the event, but actually this piece had to go back to Switzerland because there was a buyer who wanted to have a look at it, and obviously a very lucky chap to be able to even think about buying this incredible piece. There are 3 main things that stand out on this piece for me, and the first one is the Gyrotourbillon. I'm going to go into detail about what a tourbillon is in a couple of videos time. I've kind of already got that scheduled up, and it would have been, had I been organised, it would have been better to drop that video before this one, but I'm not organised, so we're going to do it the other way around. But basically, hit subscribe and that bell icon so you don't miss out on that video that's coming up. But in short, a tourbillon was created to improve the accuracy of a pocket watch. It's completely redundant in watches now. However, watchmakers do still use them just to kind of flex their watchmaking ability. But JLC have actually gone deeper with this one by making it a Gyrotourbillon. It's essentially a tourbillon that rotates on 2 different axes, and it's something that JLC invented themselves. The second thing is a date indicator, and this sounds a bit weird on a watch that has a Gyrotourbillon and a minute repeater to talk about the date, but the way that they've executed a date is amazing. So the date indicator is the numbers around the time dial, and you've got that little red tipped hand pointing at the date. That hand jumps from date to date, but when you get down to the bottom of this track around the 6 o'clock area, you'll see that it disappears to make room for the Gyrotourbillon. They didn't want that date hand kind of to be floating above the tourbillon, but also they didn't want to have the hand pointing at nothingness. So actually, when it gets to the date, the 16th date, the hand then snaps across that tourbillon to get to the 17th date. just the fact that they've engineered that into the watch just so they don't eat into either the space or the visual space or actual space of the tourbillon, I think is really cool. The other cool thing about them doing that is it allows them to then have that date track show 31 days, but also be visually symmetrical. So you'll see as it's going down the dial, it's hitting all the odd numbers, and when it's coming up the dial on the left hand side of the dial, it's hitting all the even numbers. So by them having that little cutaway, it has so many different extra aspects to the watch, and it allows it to do quite a few things in a very clever way. The third thing that stood out to me was obviously the minute repeater. I don't know what it is about minute repeaters, but I absolutely love that complication, that the mechanics of that thing happening. And a minute repeater is simply the watch chiming out the time. This has, along with the Gyrotourbillon, this has gone a step further, and not only does it chime at the time, but it also replicates the chime of Big Ben, hence the whole Westminster connection.
Je libère le poussoir.
The push button is going to come out.
You can see the blue gongs on the perimeter of the kind of just framing the movement there. And then you've got hammers either side that then strike them. So usually you'll just have a couple of tones within a minute repeater, but this has multiple tones within it. And that's really quite impressive. So a couple of extra things that you should know is that there's only 18 of the blue and 18 of the silver dial versions. However, the blue dials have sold out now. The movement inside this contains 1,050 components and 126 jewels. That's pretty much 100 jewels more than the majority of watches, which is once again mind-blowing. And I guess that's why this piece costs around £800,000 or around $1 million. It's pretty cool that they let me put it on my wrist and take a couple of wrist shots. Once again, thanks very much to the chap who helps set this up. He's always very generous with his time and generous with his contacts. A massive thanks to him. I think the whole complications things is interesting. I wouldn't buy a watch. I mean, if I had the money, then yes, I probably would buy this. But I don't have a drive towards watches that have complications. But I do really appreciate what they are. They're amazing things to look at, but also the whole thing around the engineering side of it, just all the maths that go into creating that mechanical thing, but then also the physical side, because these parts, these components are tiny, absolutely tiny. So that side of it is also very, very impressive. I love to know your thoughts on stuff like this, because it's a funny one. It's completely different to the normal stuff that I look at and get excited about, but I absolutely loved getting hands-on with this piece. I will be having photographs on barkandjack.com, and you can jump over to barkandjack.com and check out other articles and other videos as well. If you're into your NATO straps, do go check out barkandjack.shop. If you're on Instagram, check me out on Instagram at barkandjack. That's kind of like my main output, and you can follow my chronicles of trying to have barbecues up in very rainy Scotland. It's quite difficult doing that up here. If you like this sort of stuff, do hit subscribe down the bottom and that thumbs up button as well, and don't forget to hit that bell icon as well, because YouTube's a bit of an arse, and they don't. If you subscribe to your channel, it doesn't actually tell you when things are uploaded, so you need to hit that bell icon to actually get notifications of what's going on. Anyway, I'll let you guys go. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.